back, relax, and maybe get yourself a snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hey guys! So I'm here today to review 3 books, all of which contain short fiction. So 2 are novellas and they're part of the same series, and the other one is a short story collection. And I loved all of these, so I'm really excited to talk to you about them all. The first ones I'm going to talk about are the 2 novellas, and those are the Tensorate books by Jai Yang. The first of them is this one, which is called The Black Tides of Heaven, and the second one is one I read on my Kindle, and that is called The Red Threads of Fortune. So let's start off with the first one. This is a story which follows 2 twins, and they are set in a world where gender is a really interesting concept. Everyone in this world is born genderless. They do not have a gender when they are born. It's only when they get to a certain age that they choose their gender, and they choose it based on who they feel they should be, not on anything else. So that's a really, really interesting thing to note right away. The author of this series is non-binary themselves, and so this series really, really interestingly dissects gender and dissects what it means to be female, male, queer, and also non-binary. And I really, really love that about this series, and particularly this book in the series. This is my favourite of the 2 that I've read because I think this is more of a coming-of-age story. It follows the 2 twins, Makoya and Akiha. I probably have said their names wrong. But it follows these 2 twins, and they are the twin children of the Protector. The Protector of this world is quite conniving. It seems like she is very scheming. She definitely has a real nasty streak to her, and she kind of schemes a lot about how to get her own way and how to make others do her bidding. And we also follow the people from the Grand Monastery in this story. So at the time where we pick up the story, the 2 twins are actually not born, and we're following one of their older siblings who is hoping to join the monastery. But the Protector says that she does not want this child to join the monastery. She actually has plans for another child to join the monastery, and so this is when she gives birth to these twins. What we do find out as they grow up is that this world is quite different from our own and has a lot of magic within it. In fact, Makoya, one of the twins, has a prophetic gift that they are born with, and the other twin, Akiya, is really, really talented with like manipulating the adults and being able to get their own way. So together they work quite well as a team, and as they've grown up they've always relied heavily on one another to kind of get through situations and to just develop and learn. They're really happy living in the monastery away from their mother because they really do not like their mother. Rightfully so, she's a bit of a tyrant, and they actively want to work against her, but her schemes definitely do not allow for this, so they have to find a way to survive and stay away from her and hopefully counteract some of the actions she's put into place as time goes on, which they do in various ways. For me, the main element of this book was definitely the non-binary elements, and I think that was done incredibly well and very sensitively. I also feel like there are some really great moments of LGBTQ+ romance in here that are really, really nicely handled, and also in the second book as well. This book I ended up giving a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I think it's excellent, and I would thoroughly recommend that you guys check this one out in particular, but I think the whole series so far is really fascinating because whilst this is a coming of age, the second book, which is Red Threads of Fortune, actually follows some of the main characters from the first, and it follows them as they are kind of monster hunting. It's a bit of a different spin on the story, and this is more of a monster hunt, a chase, a kind of attempt to hunt down some of the demons and magical beings of this world and find out what is going on with them after some people come under attack. We also have a bit of political scheming going on in the background of this one, and we also have a really interesting romance between 2 of the characters. One of them is a newer character and one of them is a character we've seen before, and I really, really liked seeing their relationship blossom and seeing the way that it kind of naturally evolved. It didn't feel too forced, it felt very natural and very loving and very caring, and I really enjoyed that about this book. It's a really simple world where people are just accepted for who they are, or at least on the whole, and I think it's really nice to see that done in a way that doesn't feel like a dystopian world where people are being picked on for who they are. It's really nice to see this almost more utopian version, and I really, really liked this world as a concept. Even though there are bad people and they're doing bad things, I think that Jai Yang manages to draw you into the story and make you really excited to see what's going on and see the development of these characters that they've crafted. So for me, I gave the second one a 3.5. It wasn't quite as good as the first in my opinion, but that's only because of the different concept of the story. Like I say, the first one was more coming of age, the second was more of a monster hunt, and for me personally, I was much more into the coming of age story and kind of developing their personalities. But as a whole, I really, really liked these two novellas, and I think they're both well worth checking out, particularly this one. So I'd love to hear your thoughts if you've read them, or if you're going to read them, then definitely do let me know your thoughts once you have. I think they're fairly cheap on Kindle, but if you want the paperback, they're a bit more expensive, but the paperbacks are just gorgeous. So I mean, they're worth it. I definitely need to buy myself a paperback of the second one so that I can display them proudly on my shelf, and there will be more in this series coming out. They've actually just released the cover for the third one, which is also gorgeous, and I think the fourth one is due to come out sometime in 2018 as well. So very, very excited to continue on with this series as time goes on and follow this author who is new to me, but really, really exciting. So that is that series. The other book that I wanted to talk about is a short fiction collection, and that is this one, The Inheritance, which is written by Robin Hobb and Megan Lindholm, both of which are a pseudonym for the same author. As you may or may not know, Robin Hobb is my favourite author of all time. I've read pretty much everything by her now. I've just got a few short pieces left to read under her pseudonym of Robin Hobb anyway. I have not read all the Megan Lindholm stuff. In fact, this was my first foray into Megan Lindholm's stuff. But I'm definitely happy that I have read this collection because it was such an interesting mix. It's actually divided into the Megan Lindholm stories first, and there are quite a few more of her stories because she tends to write more urban or more modern day fantasy, and then the longer stories at the back are Robin Hobb stories, and those are much, much longer, and they are much, much more epic fantasy in feel. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about each of the stories and what I thought about them. The first one is called A Touch of Lavender, and this one was a Megan Lindholm story. It's about a world where there are these creatures who are musical, but they can only recite unoriginal musics. They're kind of like these alien invaders who have come to the world, and they have this ability to recite any piece of music they ever hear, but they cannot create anything. And we follow a young son and his mother, and they live together, and they've not had much luck with men, but they kind of get involved with one of these alien creatures, and it goes from there. I definitely enjoyed this story. I feel like it was a really good opening, and it certainly set the tone for the sort of thing that Megan Lindholm writes, and I think it was probably one of my favourites of hers in the collection because I really didn't see Robin Hobb doing sort of science fiction, and I really liked seeing her do science fiction. It was definitely different, and it was definitely my kind of sci-fi, so I liked that a lot, and I gave this one 4 stars. The next one in the collection is The Silver Lady and the 40ish Man, which follows a young girl who is an aspiring writer and an older man who kind of comes into her shop where she's working part-time to try and pay the bills, and he keeps coming there and he keeps addressing her and telling her that she is the Silver Lady, and eventually they kind of end up in bed together. It's very funny, like this is quite a light-hearted, funny story, and I actually really enjoyed seeing that side of Megan Lindholm as well because it was something I hadn't really seen so much of in like the Realm of the Eldling books, but I really, really enjoyed it. So definitely another story I liked. I gave this one 3.5. The next one is called Cut, and this was a really interesting one because it actually talks a lot about how far you should be willing to go to defend what is yours, and how far it's right to go to defend what's yours, and what is right and what is wrong when it comes to your own body. And I think that's a really, really fascinating topic. In fact, some of these stories by Lindholm were actually dealing with modern day really big topics that I did not expect her to deal with, and I really, really like that. In particular, one of the other stories that was by Lindholm is called Strays, and this was so fantastic. It was definitely my favourite of them, and it was so heartfelt, it was emotional, it was raw. It was about a young girl who is in a family where she's being abused and looked down upon, and her mother is not defending her against her stepfather, and she finds a friend in our main character, and it's horrible because it feels like it really reflects the world and some of the people's situations in our world, and it was beautiful at the same time. Like, it was emotional, it had the depth that I kind of know from Robin Hobb in the past writing. Megan Lindholm obviously does it too, but she does it with much more raw characters and much more raw realistic settings, and it was just thoroughly engrossing. That was definitely my favourite of the Lindholm stories. So I gave Strays 5 stars and I gave Cut 4.5. There were quite a few others in the collection that were by Lindholm as well, but I'm not going to go into all of them because I tended to give most of the others about 3 stars. Like, they were likeable, enjoyable, but they weren't ones that really stuck with me. So I'm going to now move on to the Robin Hobb ones, and my favourite of the Robin Hobb ones, which was Homecoming. Homecoming is a story that is set in the realm of the Eldlings, and it's a story that is set in the Rainwilds specifically. It actually tells the backstory of how the Rainwilds were settled, and it's told in diary form, and it's really fantastic. It is so, so good. In fact, it is just, I love it so much. It was so good, and I think possibly the Rainwilds is one of the best areas of the realm of the Eldlings, or at least it's like one of the bits that I find most interesting in terms of environment. I actually included it in like my favourite fantasy worlds video that I did, and I found it so, so good to see the background to this, kind of getting the history of where these people came from, how they settled it. There's this old abandoned city that has magic within it, and these people get drawn to it. The Rainwilds is made up of entirely tree-based vegetation. There is not really any dry land. It's all kind of wet and swampy and moistury, and there's loads of trees everywhere that go every which direction, and trying to live there is incredibly hard, so they have to build in the trees and things like that. And it's all about kind of understanding the landscape, growing to evolve and understand where they're living now and where they're based, and also just about trying to survive. And it's got some really strong themes of feminism running throughout. It's really about breaking away from the medieval mindsets of men and women being different levels in society, and it's really about just proving that everyone in a situation of survival counts and everyone's skills are needed. And I love that, and I think the main character is excellent, and it's just so damn good, so I gave that 5 stars. We then had the story Inheritance, which is about a young girl who finds a wizardwood trinket after her grandmother dies, and she is left this trinket by her grandmother. It's actually one that can talk, because wizardwood is like animated wood in this world, and it can talk to you, and it has various memories of the family within it as well. So this wizardwood kind of instructs her about how to get her inheritance back that her grandmother lost when she was young. And it's very, very good, but it wasn't my favourite in the collection. I gave it 4 stars. It was still really, really good. It didn't live up to Homecoming, which I loved. And then the final story that was under Robin Hobb's name is called Cat's Meat, and this was one that I did really enjoy. It's about a mother who is working and trying to survive on a farm that she's been given by her ex's father, because he felt like he should support her when her ex left. And her ex is horrible. He's abusive, he's nasty and rude and doesn't ever help, and is basically an evil guy, and she is a strong, independent woman who does not need him, and he comes back to her life after he is in some bad situations and tries to invade and tries to basically weasel his way back in, and he does not manage this because she is strong and powerful, and she's a great inspiration of powerful women. And she's good. She's wonderful, in fact, and I loved her. So I'm really, really happy that I read that one too. And I also gave that a 4 out of 5 stars. So as a whole, you can see that I probably enjoyed Robin Hobb's stories a bit more than the others. But I'm really intrigued to read some of Megan Lindholm's novels and find out a little bit more about how she writes in a novel rather than short fiction, because I think it would be really, really good, and I'm definitely excited about reading some more of her work this year, hopefully. So that is my review for The Inheritance as a whole. A really strong collection, definitely a good start place with Robin Hobb or Megan Lindholm, and one that I would thoroughly recommend picking up. I gave this a 4 overall out of 5, and I would definitely say it's worth a read, along with the other novellas that I mentioned. I'd love to hear in the comments which most appeals to you and which you might be picking up. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon in my next video. Bye guys!
Thank you for watching my video today. Go pick up a book, then come back and chat with me again.